Hi, welcome to the Wavy Digital Desk. I'm Sarah Goode, and today it's Shark Week at the Virginia Aquarium and Marine Science Center. We have Skylar Snowden with us. She's the Senior Curator of Fishes at the aquarium. So we're going to bring her on. We're going to learn about sharks they have at the aquarium. We're going to talk about myth busting, some things that you think you know about sharks, but maybe are not actually true. And then we're going to talk about, what they have happening at the aquarium right now. There's a touch area if you want to check out some stingrays, and we're just going to get into all of it. So I'm going to bring Skylar on, and we're going to go through what Shark Week means for you and at the museum. So Skylar, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Totally happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, just to start, Senior Curator of Fishes, what does that mean?
It's a pretty broad title. It also includes our herpetology section and our invertebrates. So yeah, it just means that I'm responsible for a large collection of animals and managing a team of really passionate individuals that take care of those animals.
Absolutely. And what you guys are going to see on the screen here, that's going to be our B-roll, is some photos from the Aquarium and Marine Science Center that were sent to us of, different life they have there. Obviously, a focus today is sharks, but we're also going to talk about, I believe, stingrays later on that you guys have on site. So, we're going to just go through some of those things about, natural behavior of sharks to how they care for them at the museum, at the aquarium, and everything. So, I guess to start, Shark Week obviously is something that happens nationally. There's TV shows and there's other content, but at the museum, why is this so important to put this focus on sharks?
I just think it's a great time to bring about awareness. It's not always the case that there are animals that are in trouble that actually get a week set aside for them. So we need to optimize it as much as possible to really get the word out about their importance and just how vulnerable they really are.
Right. And you said, trouble and talking about their vulnerability. Can we start with that? I think people think of sharks, they think of them as predators, they take over the sea, but really, there are sharks that we need to protect their species.
Definitely. And I would say most of them we need to protect, even the big ones, in particular the big ones. But we just have to remember they're apex predators. They're sort of the control mechanism for all of the other populations of fish and invertebrates below them, to help keep that all in check. Otherwise, things go out of balance.
Right. And, we're in an area where there's a lot of water around us. You see people talking about seeing dolphins. You can see sea turtles, especially North Carolina, and sharks. And we've heard about that, especially we had O-Search on a couple weeks ago, talking about shark tracking from North Carolina going up to the Northeast. But we have sharks around here, and then you also have sharks at the aquarium. What kind of sharks do you all have on site?
Yeah, here at the aquarium, we have multiple species. We have sand tiger sharks, which are found in this area. We have sandbar sharks, which are also found in this area. We have a nurse shark. They are known to go into the bay. And we also have a zebra shark, which is a South Pacific species. So you would not see that locally, but you can see that here. And then we also have some really smaller species of shark too, called our chain cat sharks.
And I know we'll get into some myth busting, but just in terms of those sharks you have there, are they all, would you say, largely, aggressive predators if you see them in the water? If, would they mind their own business? Does it just depend on the situation, which is maybe, one of the things we're going to talk about?
For sure, they're all predators at their own levels. Some of them smaller levels, some of them larger levels. They are always out there. They're always in the ocean. So yeah, they're there, but we're not on their menu. They're not out to get us at all. And in fact, I like to say that if the sharks were out to get us, we would never, ever go in the water. There would just be no way because they're always there. So if we were truly on their menu, it'd be a much bigger problem.
Right. And that's a great saying, I think, for people to remember. And I think that was something that, Osertile, they're facts over fear. So, similar idea, not on their menu. They're not out to get you. Sometimes it does happen, but I guess in that vein, it usually is when is it when they're mistaking you for a fish or a seal or some sort of marine animal?
Yeah, so usually it's a huge mistake on the shark's part, accidental mistake and not purposeful. Usually they'll be feeding on fish or something like that, and you'll have a swimmer that may just happen to swim through that same area at the same time. And with all the splashing going on in the water, sharks are very calculated. It's not necessarily, people use the word feeding frenzy a lot, but I don't like to use feeding frenzy. I like to use feeding response, because it's not frenzied. It's not uncontrolled. But when they are feeding in an area of fish like that, and you get into the mix, that's when things can happen that are negative. And another thing I like to point out in these situations is that almost everybody lives from shark attacks. And it's because the sharks realize immediately that what they just bit was not what was intended. So yeah, and also they like to go after things that are easy to catch. So they're very opportunistic. They're super efficient predators. They're very good at what they do. So they like to go after things that are sick, dead, dying, weak, injured. They're going to target those kinds of things. And if you're making the noises that mimic that, there could be a mistake made. They're not going to go after something perfectly healthy because it's just a waste of energy on their part. They've evolved for so many years to just be so efficient that they target those types of animals, and they're really, really good at it.
That's interesting. So they're conserving that energy, and you hear about, swimmers or surfers or, different incidents where they actually fight back, whether they're hitting their nose or they hit some part of, the shark's face and sort of manage to swim away or get their limbs loose. But, is that all, I guess, right behavior, if you will, for a swimmer if you do come in close and a shark is being aggressive with you?
Protect yourself at all costs.
Right. And I think, Centero released actually, a report this summer, and they said they have treated some shark bites. That's the way they worded it. But, you do hear about some close calls with shore, and, especially with how far out it feels, at least when you're in the water, especially at Virginia Beach, it is pretty deep pretty quickly, when you're actually out in the surf. I think they usually say about 3 feet of water is enough. Is that pretty accurate? Does that depend on the type of shark?
I'd say it's pretty accurate, but it also does depend on the type of shark. Typically, what we see here is you have the beach right where the water is lapping up onto the beach. As soon as you get in, there's typically a deeper section between there and wherever the sandbar is. That deeper section is frequented a lot by sharks, and it's because that's where all the fish are, not because that's where all the humans are.
Right.
But it's also where all the humans are a lot of times. So
Mhm.
it's a situation where, yeah, again, they're always there. They're just not looking for us.
Right. And I want to talk a little bit more about, I got us, to jump around a little bit, but, the sharks at the museum, at the aquarium, I keep saying museum, but, you all have so much there, exhibits and everything. But at the aquarium, you all take care of these sharks that you have, and they are on display, but, what is that like taking care of them? What do you all need to do to keep them, safe and healthy?
Well, it takes a team. I tell my team all the time, it takes a village, because it's not even just the animal care section. There's a veterinary staff, there's a water quality section, we have a life support section. They're the ones that take care of all the pumps and all the things that run the aquarium. So it's really a combined effort, but it is very rewarding at the same time. Mostly because the people that work in this field are very passionate about what they do. They deeply care about these animals and their problems in the wild, and they really, really want people to come in here to aquariums, zoos, museums, all those types of things, and learn as much as they can from these animals. Every single one of our animals, in 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 true words, are ambassadors for their whole species. So when you have the public comes in, they see these animals. I know that every single one of these keepers, biologists, aquarists, veterinarians life support professionals, all of them want people to leave here learning something that's going to benefit the sharks.
Right. And, in terms of what people come in with, I think some people do come in with that fear or maybe that, idea, whether that's from movies or shows, that put that message out there. But really, I mean, what is the message people should get? They should get that they are, necessary for our environment, that they're, beautiful, living animals. I mean, what do you want people to know that might come in with that?
Well, I can tell you one of the things I say a lot is that I hope that when people leave here that they see these animals like I do and like my team does. They're beautiful. They're beautiful animals. I mean, we look at sharks and we see just a beautiful animal. We don't see something scary at all. It never even crosses our mind. Um, so yeah, it's incredibly rewarding, both as a manager and as a biologist. Yeah, it's just great to see these people give their all every single day to make the lives of these animals amazing so that people can come and appreciate them and hopefully take that with them when they leave.
And you were talking about the variety of sharks you have, on site. How important is that, to not just have maybe ones native to our area, but to have, other species there?
I just think it's great to show the diversity in those in the sharks. And sharks, rays, all of them. I saw the B-roll of a hammerhead. That's my favorite shark. They're the oddballs. They look funny, but they're just amazing animals. So yeah.
And you talked about what you can currently see on the exhibit side, but one of the ones on their website that's featured that I wanted to ask you about is the sand tiger shark, and that's labeled as vulnerable. And I just wanted to ask you, are sharks at different levels? Are some more protected than others? How do they get those labels?
Yeah, some are in more trouble than others are. Sometimes those labels are regional labels and not necessarily global levels. Yeah. It's not necessarily a global thing. It can be a
Right.
regional thing. A lot of that comes from the IUCN list of endangered species, which can be found. You can Google it. I International Union for Conservation of. Can't remember the rest of the
It's all right.
acronym.
I can
That's
put
all
that.
right.
I can
It's all
put that
right.
online after.
Yeah, it's okay. It's IUCN. They rate the animals. And then on top of that, we also have our ESA, our Endangered Species Act for the United States. So some of those animals will also be on both of those lists. Um, but the ESA, I think, is more regional to the United States as opposed to IUCN, which is more international.
And, with the sharks, especially that are more vulnerable, having them, featured or on the aquarium, I mean, how important is that just to maybe get more awareness out there about certain species that are on that list?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's important that people know that that overfishing is a problem, and when you overfish, even in the lower levels of the food chain, you're basically depleting the food from those upper levels of the food chain. And when that starts happening, the food chain starts breaking down. And it happens the other way too. It's even worse that way. When you lose the top predators, you end up with an overabundance of species just flourishing at levels below them. And it can be a problem. So yeah, I just hope people know that these sharks are worth protecting. They are overfished, largely for their fins, which is another whole topic. And it's a problem.
In terms of overfishing too, what a good thing for the week, obviously, of Shark Week to know that it happens both ways, right? As you just said, and it's disruptive, to the food chain that we have in our area. And there are so many other sort of sea animals around here that we want to protect, and sea turtles are another one that we talk about a lot, and I know that you all have some there as well, and you have historically, whether you're trying to sort of rehab them or whatnot. But we talk about vulnerable animals; it affects all of them, right? Not just the
It really
single.
does. Yeah, totally. Affects everything.
And in terms of the care and training, I mean, is there certain things that you all do, from which tank you put the sharks in, what other life are in there? I mean, what goes into that process of developing that, ecosystem that they live in?
Well, we get asked all the time, and throughout my entire career working with these animals, one of the most often questions I get asked is, do the sharks eat the other fish in the tank? Or why don't the sharks eat the other fish in the tank? The answer is the sharks don't usually eat the other fish in the tank. And the reason for that is twofold. One, we keep the animals in the tanks that are with them really healthy, as we always aim for. The best possible animal welfare and health that we can possibly give. And because they're healthy and they're well taken care of, those instances where they find something that's dead, dying, sick, or injured are very, very in the minority. So it doesn't happen all that often. With that said, sharks, again, are very good at what they do and very good about sensing prey that are compromised in some way, like something that's sick, dead, dying, weak, or injured. So they don't usually go after the fish in the tank, but it does happen. It does happen, and it's just because they're doing what they do and they're really good at it.
Yeah, I have to say, I've never been to an aquarium where, I've had that sort of show happen as you walk by. But hey, that's life. And I guess if you're going to the aquarium, you're going to see it all. But that's interesting, because that goes back to what we were talking about, humans in the water and sort of putting up a fight. So, you all feed them as well. So they know.
That's the other part of the twofold.
Yeah.
Is that we keep them well fed. Yeah.
And then, in terms of, what else is living in there, I do want to talk about, and then we can bounce back. But, I was surprised to learn that, a cousin, if you will, of the sharks is the ray. And you all have some available in your touch pool right now as well.
We do. We do. We have multiple species of ray here. In our touch pool in particular, we have cownose rays. They're the ones that you see in schools sometimes swimming through the Chesapeake Bay. We also have southern stingrays. They get really large. We have one big one in our Norfolk Canyon exhibit, but we have a smaller one in the touch pool. And we also have an Atlantic stingray in the touch pool. And we just added our newest addition, which is an Atlantic guitarfish. And they're really cool because they kind of look like something in between a ray and a shark.
And is it really a mix like that, or is that just sort of a function of how it looks?
It's just a function of how it looks, yeah.
And then what are they like in the touch pool? Are they, I obviously it's a touch pool because people are allowed to touch their backs, in there. But what is that like? Are they friendly? Are they in that environment? Are they friendly until messed with?
Yeah, I mean, as with most things, as long as you respect them and are gentle, they tolerate it really well, and they have choice. So there's an area where nobody could touch because nobody could get to them. If they have the opportunity, they can always go there anytime they want. If they feel threatened or nervous in any way, they can always go over where they can't be touched. So it's important to us that they have choice.
And then, when people are going into the museum, I mean, what's the best thing for them to do at the aquarium to learn about sharks, to learn about these rays? Are there people on site that they should be going up to? Are there plaques around? I know that some people might, particularly as it's summer before school starts, getting into the aquarium to check things out. What should they do to learn more this week about the sharks and the rays?
Oh my gosh, all of the above. Yeah, find a staff member, ask a question. We love getting questions. Read the placards. There's a lot of really cool information on the interpretive graphics that we have. But most importantly, find that appreciation for the animals. See the beauty that we see in them every day, and take it with you. It's really important.
And, in terms of, just going back to myth busting, and I was asking about, especially people in this area and being near sharks in the water, but, what are some of those myths that people think? Is that part of the fear? Are there certain behaviors of sharks that people aren't familiar with that you all know? I mean, what are some of the things you hear?
I mean, most people are just afraid. It's just, it's in the psyche.
Hmm.
Um, what we see is lots of things that, and I don't want to get too anthropomorphic, but I mean, we see similar things to like curiosity, um, real thought. I don't know, when you get really close to a shark and you can see them looking at you, it gives you a different perspective, I think, than just seeing a shark that you're not making any kind of connection with. So, I mean, when we dive with them and we see them looking at us, it's more than there's a lot going on back there.
Right. So they're smart animals. They're not, and they obviously are making decisions on what to eat based off of energy. So they're taking and they're calculating. So are you seeing that with how they behave with other animals, even just in your tanks?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And they are really smart. We do training with them. Um, I've trained lots of sharks in my career. They'll come to targets, which is like something you put in the water that they recognize and they know, okay, time to eat, go over there for food. Um, you can further that by having them follow that target, which is really nice because if you need to get hands-on and do a medical procedure or a physical or anything like that, it just makes it easier to lead them where you need them to go. Um, and further to that, there's a lot of work that's been done with doing tactile work on sharks, where they just become completely desensitized to handling for veterinary procedures, which is a huge benefit for us and the shark because it reduces the stress in the shark and it makes it safer for us at the same time. So it's a win-win, and we're able to accomplish those medical needs that they might need in a safe way.
That's interesting because I think when people think of, training animals or, target practice, I think the first animal they think of is a dolphin, or they think of something that
Totally.
is on show and that seems a little bit safer, to play with. But that's so interesting that, they do interact with you in that matter.
Yeah, and to be honest, we I I I I can read sharks, so I'm more comfortable with them. Even I would be more comfortable with sharks than I would be dolphins, honestly.
That's interesting too because, obviously that's the one that people play with. That's the one that people, have historically
Yeah.
got into pools with. I think some people should know in the wild they probably should stay away, regardless of if they think they are a friendly
Right.
animal because we've seen those videos on social media as well.
I just
But
can't read them like I can read a shark, and it's not even that clear cut and dry, but just working with them for so long, my comfort level with them would be greater than I would be comfortable with
abs-
marine mammals, but uh, marine mammals are super important too. So
Well, that's interesting. And I think, if, people can take anything from you, I think your comfort level, people should be able to see the beauty in the sharks, I guess, just the same way that you would in any other sea creature.
absolutely. Yep.
Well, Skylar, I mean, is there anything else that, we didn't touch on that I'm sure you have so many just individual personal experiences from, diving with them to training them. But, is there anything that comes to mind or, an anecdote you want to share?
Um, I really like a quote that Sylvia Earle, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but Sylvia Earle had a famous quote, which was, you should be afraid if you go in the ocean and you don't see sharks. That's a good one to leave people with because it's reality. The sharks go away, it's going to be really bad for us.
Well, thank you for that, and I think that's an important message. So I'll leave it there. As we end and get through Shark Week this week, maybe people will take that and take tools like the shark tracker or seeing them in the ocean as a sign that the oceans are healthy and the sea life is healthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Skylar, so much. And thank you all for watching. There is an article link on Facebook where you can go. You can connect with the Virginia Aquarium page. You can connect with their Shark Week activities. And we'll have more from our chat today in there as well. So thank you, Skylar, and have a great Shark Week there at the museum.
You're welcome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.